Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Andrew, and today on our special episode of Breaking into Cyber, I have a great friend and colleague of mine that I know back from my state days with Department of Homeland Security, Jennifer Pittman-Leeper, also who many will know across the industry as JPL, sitting here across from me today. So Jennifer, very excited to have you on the channel, and I'm going to do a kind of quick pass to you to kind of give a short introduction on yourself.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me first and foremost. Great seeing you again. Have missed working with you. It was funny hearing you call me Jennifer. I'm afraid I'm in trouble. Um, it's such a funny thing. There's not many women in cybersecurity, but apparently in order to be in cybersecurity, you must be named Jennifer. That's how I ended up losing my name and just getting down to acronyms. So I was with the state of Arizona for almost 20 years. And within the state, I did so many different roles. I was, economic development, workforce development. Then I went into the finance side of things. Then I got to the IT shop. And that's where it started to get very interesting to me. I had an opportunity. No, we're not going to call it an opportunity. I was mandated to work with the cybersecurity team, which of all positions was the one thing I did not want to do. I did it anyway because that's what you do when your boss tells you to work with them. And somewhere along the line, I absolutely fell in love with the people who were doing it. The mission of protecting the state and all its residents resonated with me. And so I did that for several years, developing the state's cybersecurity strategy, but more importantly, implementing it, which is where the hard work really lies. I think you were there to help with some of that. That's
Yes.
definitely the hard stuff.
No, definitely.
After a while, it was time to figure out what comes next. And so I left state service, but I still keep state and local government at the forefront. And so I left and went to the private sector, where all I do is work with state and local governments. And, I still get to see even more teams, our old team included.
Yeah, it's like you never left. It's so funny. Like, I know when I was briefly there, I think when I got to the state, you just pivoted, and I believe it was titanium. And it's just
Yes.
like, it's almost like you never left. Cause like, I probably almost either saw you at least once or twice a week, if not on a call in the Arctic, or just like we were talking about you all the times. Cause yeah, it was just like, man, we wish JPL was back on the team, but you were very much still helping us. And with your journey right now, you are currently at Axonius as a, oh man, what's the title? It is a, hold on, wait for it. SLED Field CISO. Can you kind of maybe elaborate or kind of explain what is a SLED Field CISO?
Yeah, it's actually the best of both worlds. So I am not personally responsible for the cyber posture of the company I work for. Rather, I'm in a consultancy role where I talk to state and local governments. I dig in deep and I ask questions that those are the hard ones that nobody really wants to ask. But where are you from your cyber posture? What are you doing? Do you have the resources you need? How are you protecting your constituents' data? And then I help advise them on, okay, well, maybe you should consider doing something like this. Once they agree to, yeah, we know we need to do whatever it is that we need to do, that's when I help advise them from my former role. Okay, when I had to justify that kind of expenditure, here's what seemed to resonate with either the lawmakers or with the executive branch, highest officials. Because asking for money for cyber, it's not easy. They don't understand why it is so critical to have it until there's an incident. And then all of a sudden, money is no longer the issue because help us make this thing go away. But if I could only encourage them, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Do the things you need to do. Do the basic cyber hygiene. And frankly, you take yourself from an easy target to a more difficult target that isn't worth the time.
Yeah, I've used the acronym when it comes into security events and like security in depth. It's like when you buy a new house and then you're trying to like crime proof it. You might get a dog, you might get a camera, you might get new lights, a security screen door. Those can all be acronyms of like intrusion prevention systems, a WAF, increased multi-factor authentication for user sign-ons, tons of stuff. And it's exciting, and that's very much important on many organizations, big and small, when it comes into protecting their data and customer data. But Jennifer, first question for you, which a lot of folks come on this channel to kind of also get into, and I really appreciate the background of what you've come from and where you're at now. But cybersecurity, not many people growing up, going through kindergarten, when you get that question of what do you want to be when you grow up, is not a SLED Field CISO. It is not, I want to be a cybersecurity pen tester. I don't want to go into audit or compliance. I don't want to go into being a SOC analyst. But obviously, it's a huge passion that you've definitely embraced and really have been successful in. What kind of was that journey in mapping this for a career? What kind of was the goals behind it?
Yeah, I mean, I have a non-traditional background, but I think everyone says that anymore because no one was in kindergarten saying, I want to do cyber. And if we're going to be very honest, I'm not sure that that was even a career field when I was in kindergarten. But, my background, I did all of the project management type of stuff. I did the program management type. I started my career at the state of Arizona on the policy side of the house. I was a legislative liaison, which you can call it a lobbyist, you can call it a government consultant, but basically we were helping write the statutes for the state of Arizona and advising the legislature on this would be a good thing to have, this would cause these challenges, consider it carefully. And what was really interesting to me, like, how does all of this come together? Cybersecurity. And I know that seems so bizarre, the finance side. Well, that's easy to figure out how to put all of that together. I had to understand how budgets work, budget package, all the way from I want to buy something to I want to, have additional monies for this new thing that I want, and how that whole process worked, how the procurement side of the house worked, and all of those pieces. That was a very unique skill set that I brought to the team. The program management, programs are up and operational and things are working, and then there's new things coming on. That's the project management side of it. I had that. And then the IT, I helped the state roll out multiple enterprise-wide programs that changed the course of how Arizona does business, how the constituents interact with the state, with the individual agencies. And it was just the coolest thing that cybersecurity brought all of this together. And it was like, honestly, did they just take a look at my resume and be like, we need a random unicorn and this is our unicorn? I mean, it was pretty cool. And like I said, I didn't want to do it at first. My boss was like, I think you would really be happy here. And sometimes bosses know best. And this is where I need to be.
It's so funny. And I've been told by multiple managers and multiple people in this career field that when you're good at what you do, and you have a solid foundational background and you're able to communicate, you have good soft skills, it's not you finding your next role, it's the next role finding you. And it's 100%, I think 100% a true fact. When you're good at soft skills, communication, well-rounded, you have good foundations, you understand the concepts of what you're trying to accomplish, you're going to not have to look for another role. You're going to be headhunted in a sense for that next role. And I think a lot of people, it's so funny because people, and I'm sure they've asked you the same thing, Jennifer, going into cases and going into conferences and talks like, oh, Jen, how'd you do it? Or JPL, like, what's the process? What's the road work? And it's so funny because just like you said, one may not think like, oh, I want to be a project manager. Well, that's not cyber related. Oh, let me tell you, it can be. And the same thing of working for your local government, being a lobbyist, being that ambassador to be able to, I always say, like, decipher and kind of explain cyber to everyone, because not everyone understands tech and not everyone can understand, even at your C-suite level, why is cyber such a costly dollar amount that we have to implement? Why is this important? Why do we need a WAF? What's a WAF? Why do we need MFA? Why are we what's that abbreviation even mean? Well, it's
Yeah.
important so when we have that breach, we're protected and the bad guys can't get in and steal all this data, and then we're getting fined by name said company or organization for losing that data. I mean, look at the NFL that just had that a $250,000 fine for having the prank call to the leaked uh, player that eventually got drafted by one of the coach's sons. And not only was it that $250,000 fine, it was an additional $100,000 just alone on the data leakage from that information that son got a hold of on the iPad. It might be a simple joke to some, but that is the loss of data. That is a breach. That is someone getting a hold of information they should not have had. And I think it's such a good use case right now because everyone loves football and everyone can
Yeah.
talk football. And I know you like football because you're part of fantasy leagues, and I've been in a fantasy league with you. But it's just so nuts to me that some people, they don't see all those kind of bigger pictures and the second, third order effects of why this stuff's just important to talk about and understand those those kind of like additional things that happen if something isn't implemented.
So much to unpack there. First and foremost, I absolutely love that something $350,000 practical joke. You are spot on that it was a loss of data. The data was supposed to be confidential. And we as individuals need to begin to expect that when I give my information to you, it is entrusted to you to use it in the manner only for which I gave it to you.
Yes, exactly.
So, like, the cybersecurity team made me the world's most paranoid individual ever. That's just what you guys do to people. And so I found a trick that one of you all taught me, which was every one of my passwords has the name of the whatever it is that I'm using somehow worked in. It won't be the exact name, it'll be a few letters. It's just enough to tell me who lost my data, because I want to know, where did my data get compromised? That's a huge thing. The other piece that you talked about is one of my superpowers. I don't have a cape, but I am indeed a translator. I feel like when I was at the state, my role was to take the Techinese that was being spoken and to unpackage it and to put it into the business use case, to explain it to the executives. They don't care about the ones and zeros. They don't care. They don't want to just be scared about cybersecurity. They want to understand from a business perspective, what is the risk that I am assuming? What is the risk that I am mitigating for? That's what I would be able to explain it to them, explain it in a dollar and cents conversation. Now that I'm in the private sector, my job hasn't changed. I'm an interpreter. When my sales team goes and talks to a public sector entity and they say things, and then the public entity says something back, I go back to my team and I explain, when they said this is what that means in public sector ease. And then the sales team is trying to convey something. And so I now have to speak fluent sales ease back to them. So translating from business units, from executives, from technical, from the sales team to the customer side of the house, all back and forth. Here's what they mean when they say this.
Yeah.
Frankly, I feel is my ultra superpower, and it has served me quite well.
Well, Jennifer, and it kind of, at the role you've been sitting now, and I think across your time now within cyber, I mean, you've probably sat on many of interviews, whether for yourself moving to that next jump or getting to invite those new eager and hungry cybersecurity professionals onto their probably next role or their next promotion or their next journey into transitioning into cyber. What to you, when it comes into getting to see those resumes and just sitting through previous interviews, what stands out on a good resume to you? What stands out for a good candidate? What are some probably pros and cons that you would want to recommend to when they're getting into that interview? And I know it's a very wide-ended question because it could be for any role, but what are some things that you like to see when it comes into a strong candidate? Okay,
so I'm the first to admit, I don't need I don't need any special kind of education. I'll go so far as to say I don't need any kind of specific certifications. Aptitude and attitude. That's what I will always hire for. And those are the types of questions during the interview that I'm going to be poking at. I'm going to be double clicking on. I'm really going to hone in on it. I want to know from a culture perspective, do you bring something to the team that the team doesn't have now? I am very much looking for a diverse background. I want someone who solves problems differently than I might solve them. I already have me on the team. I don't need another one of me. I'm going to look for weaknesses that I have and be like, I need some strengths over here. That gives me that very well-rounded team. Now, how do I get through the resume part? Here's a little secret that I've been doing lately. And if I'm doing it, I'm not unique and I'm not alone. First of all, I will take my job requisition and I'll feed it into ChatGPT, and I will have it summarize it. Like, what am I actually asking for? Because maybe I wrote it wrong. That's the first thing I'm going to do. Once I get that really what I'm looking for, then I'm going to do that with all of my resumes. And I encourage your listeners to do the same thing. Summarize, and it's a pretty simple command, summarize this resume into 2 paragraphs. Upload your resume, see what it says. Because I had to go in and rejigger the entire resume because I found out that I was highlighting things that I was like, oh, that's not actually the skill set or the experience that I want to highlight. Make sure that it then matches. Upload the job requisition that you're applying for, and basically then your resume, and ask ChatGPT to compare it and like to see, what you're missing and what you have. Now, for all the ladies out there, the average woman will not apply for a job unless she matches 90%. I'm not average, so I've applied for things that I definitely don't hit the 90% mark at. The average male will apply if they have 60% or better match. So number one, I encourage you to reach for some jobs that maybe are just a little above and beyond where you are now, and stretch yourself and grow. Because if you get a person like me on the other side of that panel, I'm absolutely going to be interested because I care about attitude and aptitude. That's some tips that I have for you. I have sat through interview panels on both sides of the house. And when I'm the one interviewing and someone on my side asks a recall question, tell me what the port protocol is for, dude, I'll Google it. Like, I don't need to just be able to recall that stuff right off the bat. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I would rather be hearing questions that are more situational in nature and behavioral in nature. How would you respond to this type of scenario? Or give me an example of a time when you did. Don't be afraid to talk about your failures.
Yep.
Because if you are a real good human, chances are you learned way more from that failure than you ever did from lucking out and having a success. I think just as humans, we think that we have to present ourselves as this most perfect person who's never made a mistake and doesn't have any flaws. Own up to them, because to me, that tells me you're self-aware. And I would rather deal with a self-aware person because they're coachable. I can give them feedback and I can tell them, hey, during that meeting, this is kind of what happened. And, let's guide it this way in the future. No big deal, no harm, no foul. If you aren't growing every day and learning and improving, I don't know, it's time to start pushing up daisies.
Yeah. And it's a lot of things you hit on there. I want to also retouch. So the resume aspect, 100%. It's not just throwing your resume into ChatGPT and like letting it do its own thing. It's prompting, and it's AI's here. I know there's a ton of talks on the RSA conference that just happened here this last week. And I saw tons of LinkedIn vids and shorts. Just like, hey, look, AI's here. It's not, I'd say, the hot word anymore. Like, hey, we know it's here. We need to integrate with it and make it work for us, not let it run and ruin our systems. Like, use it to benefit and learn from. We can't fully just 100% believe what it's doing. There's still proofreading. There's still human eyes that need to read through things and make sure that it's not making things up. And I'll say expanding the truth on some resumes and some facts on folks. But no, 100%, like, take that resume and tighten in and tune your resume to fit exactly for that role you're applying for. I've had a few folks I've talked to, they're like, I've applied to 100 positions and I'm not getting any callbacks. I'm like, well, are you altering your resume per one? No, I shotgunned it out. I'm like, you shouldn't be doing that. You're not going to get good feedback from it. That's like throwing spaghetti on a wall and just seeing what sticks. You have to put a little bit more spice into it, take your time, read through the rec, hit those keywords, make sure that you're the best fit for that position. And that's what's going to get you callbacks too. And just like you said, and I tell people the same thing, like when I read through job recs, I'm not no unicorn myself. I am a continuous learner that knows my strengths and weaknesses. And there's been plenty of times on calls where, shoot, I've been asked easy questions. Hey, name the OSI model, name this port. What's this protocol? Hey, explain the three-way handshake. You know what? I know what it is. I can somewhat paraphrase it, but I'd have to do like a Google search to give you the exact definition of it if you want that verbatim. But this is how I'd research. I never just answer no. I say, but this is how I'd research it. This is how I'd get that answer. This is what I would do to document it. I'd make a flashcard. I'd put it on my dream board of like, make sure you read this every day. So when asked, I can regurgitate by memory. But the same thing, when I get those, one of my roles I interviewed for, I thought I was speed dating. They asked me probably 50 questions in the span of like 10 minutes. Like, what's this port? What's this protocol? What's this? I'm like, oh my God, what? I'm like, what's MITRE ATT&CK? What's an IOC? What's an IOA? I'm like, this. And we just want quick, fast responses. I'm like, okay. And it was interesting. I'm like, I got the job.
But to me, part of any good applying, interviewing process, I need to know that I'm a good fit for you and the company. So spend some time looking at what is important to the company. What is their culture? What do they believe in? What are the types of things that they support? Who's their general customer base?
Yeah, exactly.
Because if that's not a good match to me, I'm not going to be happy. Well, if I'm not happy, I'm not going to make my team happy, et cetera, et cetera. It goes on.
Yep.
Don't bother. You were spot on. Every resume that you're sending out tweaks. I'm not saying you have to completely blow it up and start anew.
Yeah, exactly.
There should be some flavor of that particular company and what they are looking for to show them, at minimum, I understand what you're looking for and I am that person and here's why.
Yep, like keywords, key sentences. So like if you're going for an engineer role and you're a security analyst, look into your security analyst role that you've worked with that SIM they've used. You work with the SOAR, you've worked with different tools, and just throw in some keywords, throw in data that you've done. And I always tell people when it comes to resumes, you can't just say like, I've used blank tool. I'm like, okay, well, I know you've used it and that works. I say, okay, I can look at that. Okay, well, they understand the tool, but like do metrics with it. Like, hey, utilized and worked CrowdStrike on a daily basis where I've worked over 50 detections in a span of 30, like a 7-day period, where out of those cases, I was able to close all detections with a 99.8% close rate with little to no error. It can be a sentence
100%.
which would tune it up a little bit, of course. I'm not saying write a narrative per bullet, but you did X, it accomplished Y. Show metrics and goals, because I think at least I've sat through a few panels and I've done a few resume reviews where it's like, that's the things I look for. When I just see simple, like, use ServiceNow, I'm like, what'd you use it for? Were you using it for investigations? Were you using it for case generation? Did you use it for, did you use it for break glass? Like, okay, well, how did you use it? It gives the reader, or at least the manager, even like, okay, well, how well do they know Survey? I mean, I'm using ServiceNow as just a baseline example, but it gives them a little bit more, I guess, maybe flavor into like, okay, well, what's their depth, or what do they actually know? And then and then obviously within the interview, when they want to, hey, can you talk more to us about your experience with X tool or X application? That's when you can really get to dive in and actually spill your, oh yeah, I've used it on a daily basis. This is my use case of why I use it for. I'm not saying spill your company secrets, but just make sure that they understand that you navigate and can go through that application or tool very confidently saying, cool, then we know he'll be very strong because those are the same tools we use.
100%. You are spot on. Metrics matter. And giving specifics, that's not spilling trade secrets. Like I'm not giving away state data when I'm talking about, I responded to X number of things with this type of result. Don't just give me I did X number. With what result? Like
Yeah.
what was the point? So I use this tool for incident response. Cool. I'm super happy for you. And was able to preempt this many incidents, was able to quarantine this percentage. That is not a trade secret by any means, but it shows that you're using it in a specific way with success. I think that's where that actually stands out, rather than I have this cert, I'm this qualified on this tool. I mean, that helps. It kind of gives me a general idea of what you know how to do. But here's a secret. I have a lot of those certs too. I can regurgitate and pass a cert pretty easy. I mean, talk to me about how you implemented, how you actually did the thing in the real world, in the wild, not just in a practical setting.
Bree Frost over at Pluralsight, she's the director of their training and such. She gave me the best example of like, certs are great, but there's never going to be a time when you're doing a pen test, you're using that application where it's like, all right, you got to get through this firewall. A, you go through the port B. B, you unplug it. C, you ask a friend. Or D, you run this command. That's not how real life works. Like, it's you have to take the information you're getting from certifications, from training, from building your own home lab, from going to Elastic, Google, Chronicle, where they have tons of free training on their sites. Do it on your free time, invest in yourself. If you want to and plan on getting certifications and you're breaking into the field and you want to pay for it or go through your school and look for grants and you get those certs, that's awesome. But the thing that another one of my good colleagues kind of mentioned too is like, you can have an alphabet of certifications behind your name. And whether you have a SANS cert or a Sec Plus certification, if I ask the same candidates the same question on, hey, walk me through a phishing investigation, and the person that has that Sec Plus, which is a $300 certification, answers better than that person with that GSEC SANS certification, which is $10,000, they have a better grasp and understanding of the concepts. I don't care if you have that SANS certification. Well, I have a SANS certification. That's great. But this person that has Security Plus understands their basics and their core values of that more, that understand the concepts. Just because you have a plethora of certifications doesn't mean you're a subject matter expert. You still have to implement the data out of those and actually, it's just like riding it's a silly analogy, but it's like riding a bike. If you don't practice the things you're learning, they're perishable skills, especially for pen testing using Burp Sweep, Nmap, Linux command, cross-site scripting, going through all those things you have to actually understand and do. Good report writing. I mean, if you don't do those on a daily basis, they're going to fall through the cracks when you try to, oh man, like I've used that tool before, but it's been about a year because I did it back in school. Like, spin up a lab, jump and try Hack Me, jump and Hack the Box. There's tons of great training platforms these days, back from when I was even trying to go back into cyber back 8 years ago. And it's just kind of interesting. And then another pivot too, Jennifer, and you made a good point on this, is women applying into roles, they have to meet those 90% goals, while men compared to 60. Do you feel there is a gap when it comes into, and I kind of already know this answer because even in my last few companies, there are maybe one or two females on my SOC teams, which they're rock star analysts, engineers, managers, but it almost seems like there's so few of them. What's your reasoning, or why do you think there might be just maybe I don't want to say a lack of women in cybersecurity, because I know plenty. I've had a ton on my channel. We've talked, but it almost feels sometimes too, like when I talk to even my coworkers on applying for the next role, like, well, I don't meet all the qualifications. I'm like, no, dude, apply. So it's funny that statistic's there, because like I've talked to one of my colleagues that's back at Wells Fargo, which is like, well, I don't meet all the requirements. I'm like, dude, you're still the perfect candidate. You should totally apply for this next role.
Okay, so you said this was just one podcast, not a year-long series. I mean, the reasons behind this, they're all over the place. We're making headway. We're for sure making headway. That's a good sign. But you are actually doing exactly what's needed, which is that encouragement. And I consider like the men in the cyber field, all of them I consider to be my allies. So offer those words of encouragement. And, we need to start talking to our younger generations a whole lot sooner. You can't wait until they're at college or higher education to begin. Hey, what would you think about a career here? You seem to really enjoy computers. You seem to enjoy robotics. You seem to really be into some of the STEM-ish stuff. What would you think about it? I also think we need to stop with the old stereotype, and I'm going to make fun of you, with the hoodies. And they're in their, in their dark basement. That's what cyber is. I think putting people like me, who happen to be an extrovert, out there showing people you can have a sense of humor, totally acceptable. You can be a female, totally acceptable. But I think until we use our allies to help encourage that down the path, I think we need to talk to our daughters, our sisters, our everyone else. You don't have to get into cyber at 22 years old. You're ready to rock and roll. I think we need to talk to people who've got really varied careers. You know what? You're a great translator. You kind of talk between this group and that group. Hey, those finance people, they're perfect in this. They're meticulous to detail. These are the kinds of people, when you just know that aptitude and attitude, those are the people that we begin to encourage. We let them move into this. And maybe one of the first things we need to do is not say you need 3 years of experience, a higher education degree, and 12
CISSP. It's like, whoa, this is an intro level, sir. What's going on?
This is
whoa.
Intro. Thank you very much, sir. But I mean, I think there's several different things we can do. Look, I've been on teams. I go days where I don't have a single call or meeting with another female. I personally am just very used to it, and I don't think too much about it. But when I am with a female, I watch the interactions that are going on. And my role in those meetings is to help support that person. Sometimes if they're a little less outgoing than I am, if they start to say something and they are interrupted or they are talked over or whatever, as an ally, and that ally can be a fellow female, it can be a male. Actually, I think JPL was just making a point. Why don't we let her finish what she was saying? It's not rude. It's just making other people situationally aware. And I think most females will actually, I have found this personally, that the males that I do work with in cybersecurity, I don't even know if they know that I'm a female, a male, or whatever. They just know, hey, she's the person who's going to get stuff done. Go to JPL. And I think that's actually kind of a positive to me for encouraging more women to get into the field. Like, I personally haven't experienced too much of the, oh, you're a female, pipe down, you wouldn't know better. I don't know. Maybe that outgoing, I'll make sure that they only make the mistake once.
Only once.
Only once.
No, and I think like I've kind of like used this now analogy a few different times now, because it's like I think it's very true to the state. Like, and I think you hit it on the nail. Like, talking to our younger generation and finding our replacements. I got to talk to John Hammond earlier in April, and I'm like, yeah, it's like he has a just hacking coming up on his website that they're now just hacking site, and it's just like he's giving back to the community, and like as many like Tyler Ramsby as well with a lot of his content he's putting out. And it's just like not being a gatekeeper, but then also finding your replacement, because at some point in time, JPL is going to want to retire. At some point in time, Andy's going to want to retire. At some point in time, John Hammond, oddly enough, is the famous Huntress cyber consultant pen tester he is also going to want to retire. And finding and training our next replacements, whether they're in junior high, high school, college, mid-year career change, it's important to have that mentorship and just exchange of knowledge. Because even when I was breaking in back 8 years ago, I was very blessed to have Jared Robick over at MicroAge, who took me under his wing to also kind of get me into this field. And I could ask him questions and kind of figure out the path I wanted to go down. Adam Pena, who's now over at MCC, is their cyber director. Ryan Murray, who's now the state CISO. I mean, and yourself, even JPL, of getting to talk to you guys and ask questions and understand certain concepts or kind of figuring out where the next pivot should be in my career. It's huge. And it's a huge part of, I think, everyone's hunt on good mentorship. And it's interesting, right? Because you think of IT and cybersecurity and you think of introverts, you think of hoodies. They sit there and work. Not many of us are extroverted. There are a few of us. We're rare breeds. But I try to say the same thing. Like, you can be funny, you can be loud, you can be over chatty. I had an employee where he's like, Andy, there's two things I like about you. One, I love how you come in every day and you force me to talk. The second thing I hate about you is you force me to talk. I'm like, I appreciate it, bud. But it's just good because it's having the soft skills, I think, to have that communication, but also just explain to people like, yeah, you can get into IT and be silly and be fun, and you don't have to be just like in a dark room with all the lights off, like, it burns. And
yeah, you don't have to be a vampire to be in this. You touched on something that is very near and dear to my heart, and that's about mentorship. I was in Philadelphia this past week, and on the side of a building was a beautiful mural, and it said, "No one is too important to be nice." I feel like it is my job. I owe it to every single one of the people behind me to offer words of wisdom, to be a mentor, to have a conversation, if nothing else. You owe that to the next generation. Be nice, like, be kind, be humble. There were a lot of people who offered me a hand up along the way. Half of those people that you just mentioned, and several more that we have in common, they gave me opportunities that I probably wasn't altogether qualified for, that, I may or may not have even wanted. And, they talked to me, they gave me the opportunity. Poor Dan Wilkins has explained certain things to me so many times over and over again because I just didn't get it. He had two options. Option one was to be like, you ought to go read something on it. I've explained it before. Or option two was to sit down and explain it to me again and try to explain it a little bit differently. He chose kindness. He chose to give me the right direction on this. And I think that's what all of us owe. We owe it to each other. I do want to retire. Like, I badly want to retire. It's not going to be for a little bit, but I've got to help that next generation make a leap of faith into the field, up the ladder within the field, maybe jump around even within the field a little bit. I owe it to them, and we all owe it to them. And if somebody calls you up and just asks you point blank, hey, would you mind? You're not that important. Your schedule's not that busy. You can find time. You may have to do it at weird times. You may have to book it a couple of times and rebook it.
Who could that be?
Guilty as charged. But you know what? You make the time because they're a human, and it's important that we all share that kindness with each other.
I've gotten to do some mentorship in the last few months. I've been offering on my LinkedIn, and I dropped my Calendly in there saying, hey, I'd love to chat with anyone looking to get into the field. And I've probably had about several folks reach out, and it's just like, hey, and it's 30 minutes, quick 30 minutes. I block it for an hour, but hey, I got 30 minutes. We can chit chat. Tell me what you're trying to do. My way is just a way, not the way, but let's just talk and kind of see what your thought process are and kind of see what next steps could be, and how appreciative these people are to just me taking some time to talk to them about, yeah, I want to get into this role. I'm trying to pivot. Hey, I'm in this role. I just want to make sure I'm doing the right things. And the conversation I've got the whole, they're awesome. And I'm like, yeah, you guys are spot on. You're doing all right. They're doing projects, they're training, they're going to school, they're getting certifications, they're networking, they're going to free conferences or meetups in their areas. And it's just like, am I doing everything right? I'm like, dude, you're doing nail on the head. I'm like, just solidify the soft skills. Just keep applying. You're going to apply to 100 different places, and 100 places are going to tell you no. It's the 101st that says yes that eventually you'll get your chance to get in the door. But
yeah, and it's okay. Like, It's okay to just have a single conversation. That's great. It's okay to have a more formal mentor-mentee relationship. I always offer the same piece of advice as the mentor at the end of every session. Like, I want to know, did you get out of this what you needed? Is there something else that you need? Is there some other way I can help you? And then I always flip it back. I now have an ask of you. And especially the ones that are early in their career, they're just like, what could I possibly do for you who's later in your career? I need you to do what I just did for you to someone else. Pass it on. Pass that
Yep.
knowledge on to someone else, because you're still at a different place than someone else. And I mean, if we would all do this, imagine how we're all raising each other up, and pretty soon the retirement rumor becomes a
A
reality, and we
little
can
bit
all go
closer.
off and
A
a
little
little
bit
bit closer
closer.
anyway. Yeah.
So JPL, I got two more questions for you, then we'll wrap it up with our final question for the channel. So are you planning on going to any conferences this year, possibly DEF CON?
uh okay, so all I do is go to conferences. I literally, my travel is a little bit ugly. Just got back from the National Association of State CIOs in Philadelphia. Was amazing. Absolutely loved it. Got such great time to talk to the CIOs and the CISOs and the CTOs and the CPOs. We do love our acronyms in
Very,
state
very.
and in cyber, but had great conversations with them about what they're doing in their respective states. Next week, I'm headed to a critical infrastructure forum where I'm presenting on the Big Four. For those of you who don't know what the Big Four are all about, Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, and why cyber, specifically critical infrastructure, is really what's under attack there. And then literally I'm headed to the next state. I mean, it's constant. I'm not going to do DEF CON. I will leave that in your very
Aw.
capable hands. I tend to go to more of the policy level ones and kind of talk a little bit more about the why rather than the how and how we do some things. But super excited to be going to all of these different ones. And I'll be in Texas quite a bit. There's quite a few coming up in Texas that I'll be at. Maybe I'll even see you at the Arizona DGS coming up.
You should. I should be popping out that way. So yes. So another fun question that catches people off guard, JPL. So when you're not doing cyber, when you're not working your butt off, what do you like to do to relax, to do fun, to unplug, to kind of step
Okay.
away from the screen?
So I told you I travel a lot for work. With all bad comes some good too. I earn a ton of miles and hotel points, and I translate those very frequently to travel, which seems kind of backwards because like all I do is travel and now I want to travel more. Yes, but I don't want to see the inside of a hotel or the inside of a conference center. I want to go explore the world around me. I love traveling internationally. That's my absolute favorite thing. Planning a couple of trips coming up. Hopefully, one involves water and one involves icebergs.
Ooh, okay.
That'll be fun. If I'm not doing that, I have two grown children. You never outgrow being their mom, and they are very active in paintball.
Okay.
And so I travel with their team and I run the pit, which basically
Okay.
means when they come off the field, my job is to refill their pods to make sure that they've got more paintballs for the next match, to wipe them down, hopefully not too much because that means they got shot and that's never a good thing. But I like to help run the pit and watch my kids shoot each other with paintballs and
That's pretty cool.
hopefully
That's
hopefully shoot other people a little more often.
unique. Well, that is so awesome, JPL. And as a huge thank you for coming on the channel, as always, you get some awesome, cool Ginger Hacker swag that will be coming your way. So I'll be giving you that info once we're done off the call. But last piece of advice you would give somebody breaking into cyber before we go?
Um, as much as you might be scared, as much as you think you're not qualified, as much as you think that it's long hours and it's terrible, whatever. It's one of the most rewarding jobs I've ever done, hands down. I legitimately believe you just can't see the cape that cybersecurity people wear. It is the most fulfilling mission that you can do. You're protecting your own data, you're protecting your neighbor's data. You are actually fighting the good fight day in and day out. So my advice, jump in, because the sooner you do, the happier you'll be.
Awesome, JPL. Well, everybody, if you've been this long in the channel, very much appreciate your time as always. Drop a like, subscribe, drop in the comments what your favorite part was this episode of Talking to JPL. And JPL, any shout outs to anyone that you would like to challenge to come onto the channel?
Well, conveniently, I heard one name that wasn't mentioned when we were talking about all those amazing mentors, mentees, colleagues, networks, and that's Tim Romer. Tim Romer has been an outstanding mentor for me. He gave me some amazing opportunities at the state. He's a great human being, and I'm challenging Tim Romer.
Awesome. Well, everyone, thank you so much for sticking around on this episode of Breaking into Cyber. We will catch you on the next episode.